We're live right now. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Remind me of the topic.
Sony. First party titles.
Okay. Are we focusing on any or are we just going to.
I mean, all of them. You think
Okay.
of, we're just going to run with it.
All right. Sounds good. I'll be right back.
All right. Yeah, last time we did this, or we went live on multiple places, like we were like in the intro, and I'm like setting everything up right because I also do like the producing bit, and like it just totally forgot to talk, like during the intro, just like, oh, what's going on?
Hey
But
there, hi there, ho there.
yeah, pretty much.
Uh, Yo, can you send me a link to send? Because I told a couple of my buddies that I was going to be on your podcast today, and they asked me to send it to them, so they want to
You
tap
want
in.
Twitch or YouTube?
Give me a YouTube one.
All right, give me a second. I gotta find it. It's
A
not
couple of
as
my
intuitive.
Navy buddies, they'll probably get in the chat and say stupid things.
That's fine.
Can I view the chat too, or would it be
You
weird?
can. What I would do is make sure you mute it, mute the audio because it'll fuck you up.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna send it over. You want me to send it to your phone or?
Well, yeah, just send it to the Facebook Messenger.
All right. All right. There it is.
There we go. Excuse me.
All right. You got it.
Yeah, I got it. I'm sending it now.
Gotcha. I've been pre-gaming, getting ready for this.
I was about to say I can tell.
Yeah,
I mean, I smoked like probably 5 hours ago when I got home. That's my version of pre-gaming because I don't drink like that.
I know. You never drank like that, actually. I remember it.
So I mean, in in sub school, I barely did. I didn't start drinking like heavy until I got to the boat.
I mean, that's everybody.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
not
much.
entirely true.
Well, it's most people.
Well, it makes a lot more because sub school is such a good time and you don't know it at the time. And then you get to your
Yeah,
unit and you're like, fuck, I
Yeah,
got to do this for how long?
and we were ruined too because in Degar, like it was like the Wild West. There was like you could like get super hammered, wake up on the fucking beach, and just
Yeah,
kind of
no
like brush the
rules.
sand off and keep going.
As long as you didn't disappear for multiple days, which most of us managed to do.
Yeah, most of us.
Dude, DJ, I, I can't remember if you were there for this, but I had a Dgar evening seared in my mind where like instead of doing like the whole like club thing, I know for a fact that Missile was there and I'm pretty positive Munoz was there. I think you were there, but we like literally dug a pit in like the sand right at the edge where the tide was washing in and used a
We
bunch of like old coconuts, leaves, and shells and lit like a beach fire and had like a fire and just put on music and had some smokes and like 2 cases of beer and literally sat out there until all of it was gone. But like for anyone who is live on here now, like one of the coolest things about Dgar is at night because you're literally in the middle of nowhere and there's no industry there. Like it, the sky is. I mean, it's like a it's a surreal version of looking up and seeing the universe. Like you feel like you're like looking at it through like a telescope kind of thing. It's just like the stars are way closer. It feels like, you know what I mean? So it was
Yeah.
like that was a fantastic evening that's kind of burned in my head from hanging out in Degar and doing the beach pirate thing.
I don't remember that. I do remember drinking a shitload of Captain Morgan, writing drunken notes to ourselves, and then burying a bottle of rum on the beach because we thought we were pirates.
See, I don't even. That doesn't sound
I
familiar
don't
at all.
know. I still have like pictures from that. That was like,
Well, if
that
I'm
was
in any of
nuts.
them, let me know.
I was about to say,
That's some shit I
pretty
can't
much like the
recall.
only, seems like the only good thing to do in D-Guard from what I can tell. Obviously, I wasn't stationed out there, but I visited this dude twice
Mhm.
out there, and yeah, it's the swamp.
It's a good time for like a week and a half, and then it's like
Yeah.
you can only drink so
What
much every
And
day.
then
what
this
was your
one is up.
longest stint there?
It's a wrap.
It was
When the diesel was
longest
broke,
stint
right?
there
With me?
when the diesel exploded. No, that wasn't the longest stint though,
Dude, we were
because that
on
was only
that
like 2.5 months. Yeah, my first run out there, it was like 3.5 months, and then we went
yeah,
mission.
that was when the diesel blew up, I thought.
No, that was a little later.
Well, I'm ready to roll.
About to be.
Splash some water on my face. Got beautifulness here.
Oh, nice ice cube.
Ooh,
Yeah, it is.
fancy.
I'm pulling out the high proof liquor because I never have good ice, and now that I do, I'm like, you know what? Let me get into some of this high proof stuff because it's easier to sip on over ice.
Technically, I read somewhere you're supposed to drink whiskey over ice. The water helps. It's supposed to do something.
Supposed to is such a loaded word when it comes to stuff
Yeah.
that's like so subjective, right?
I mean,
I will say it is an objective fact that if you put water into whiskey, it chemically changes it. So like a lot of Scotch bars, like if you go to like a really really high end Scotch bar, they will give you like along with your glass, give you a like little bit of water and then like a teardropper because it literally is like the difference of like two drops where it's like amazing now and it opens up all this stuff and 3 drops is too much. So it's definitely true that when water's in it, but you can totally overdo it.
all right. Well, T, whenever you're ready.
Like literally whenever I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready. All right, cool. And we're live. Welcome back to Pours and Pixels. I'm Tyler.
DJ here.
Thank you for
And
responding
I'm
quickly this
Miles.
time. Yeah, I was gonna say we have
Oh, my
a
bad.
guest on with us tonight. No, you're all good, dude. No problem. We are gonna be talking about Sony first person titles tonight, and Miles, you're gonna be hanging out with us. For everyone listening, Miles and DJ served together in the Navy, and I think they were in boot camp together, if I recall the story correctly. But yeah, Miles, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. It's good to be here. Appreciate the invite. I wouldn't say I have an extensive knowledge of Sony games, but definitely have been playing them since I was a kid for sure.
Yeah,
But
cool.
He's always
Well,
been a PlayStation guy. So
yeah,
I
definitely.
actually I was going to ask a little bit about that, but before we jump into that, let's talk about our pours for the evening. Miles, what are you drinking tonight?
So I'm keeping it simple,
Okay,
hitting it up with a cider, local cider, Bold Rock.
I just had
Go.
which kind is that? I
That's the pineapple kind actually.
okay,
The I like the standard apple. I usually get like the assorted pack. I'm not much of a beer drinker. DJ will probably tell you that. I'm not much of a drinker in general, but when I do, keep it light.
yeah.
Something like a cider, or wheat beer, or
I just
something like that.
that's so funny. So I just had a Bold Rock. It was the apple, but I had it like probably 2 weeks ago. My mother-in-law had some that she was like, "Oh, these are actually pretty tasty." I picked them up just because they look good to me. Um, light is something that comes to mind. It was like really easy drinking, and
Yeah, it's definitely smooth.
yeah, not bad at all. I think it's made by
That I'm not sure.
well, but I think Rolling Rock makes Bold Rock cider. But anyway, DJ, what about you?
Tonight I'm drinking Kova Brewing, which is the sponsor for our next episode. That was supposed to be this episode, but indie devs are very busy people, so they kind of got delayed by a week. But this one's called East Beach Blonde. East Beach is an actual area where me and Miles live. It's almost like the halfway point. Like if you cut over all the way east to where I go, that's East Beach, and then if I went straight south, I'd run into Miles's house. He lives in Virginia Beach, but this is like their staple, their crushable beer. This one has won an award. I can't remember at the top of my head. It's gonna be in the show notes because I have some copy ad that they sent me about it. But it's pretty good. It's for a crushable beer. It's pretty hoppy, which I
Okay.
like. It's
Yeah.
mine. This one is good. It's got cool can. If anyone can see it, it's got
I was gonna ask if you could show that again.
Yeah, it's
That
not
is
bad.
actually really, really dope.
yeah, it's like a really cool can. Cova's a great place. They're great people. And they make good stuff. So
Yeah. For those of you who can't see the can, my best description of it is that it kind of looks like a topographical map, but the like variations in the terrain would actually be a mermaid's hair, which is just such a cool application of that like graphic. So yeah, I think that's really, really
Yes,
cool looking.
definitely well executed
Yeah.
on the vision there for sure.
yeah, that's
Yep.
very this area. Mermaids is like a thing in Norfolk and Virginia
Yeah,
Beach. It's like everywhere. Like you see mermaids. It's like they're
can't escape them.
yeah, it's like their mascot here. It's weird, but what I mean, teach their own, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Could be.
It's part of the
What about
whole
you,
like
T?
nautical theme.
What kind of fancy ass whiskey you drinking tonight?
So I got two. I am jumping back over to my Kentucky bourbons tonight. So and my pour, but this pour is proof. So this is a weeded bourbon out of the Heaven Hill Distillery, and this is the batch number B521. So this was the second batch from 2021. Comes in at 121. Um, and it's just generally a pretty good weeded bourbon. I don't pull this out too often because I'm kind of getting back into drinking like older but lower proof stuff. And this was clearly pretty high, but I had for the evening and decided to go ahead and pour it up. And then once that's gone, I'm going to be chasing it down with what has to be one of the coolest uh, uh, round, and this is the Linwood Brewing Company Bill and Ted's Excellent Amber Lager.
Oh, that's awesome, actually.
Yeah, so I'll
Oh
be
man,
chasing that down afterwards. But Linwood Brewing is in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it's one of the local breweries that I wanted to try and get around to and grab some of their stuff. This is 5.6 alcohol, and it is a really, really good pint of an amber lager. So I'm for the evening. Anyway, boys, and we'll
cheers.
get to it.
Cheers.
So, can Sony first person party titles, not first person, and we don't really have any rules around this because they're so that I feel like it's just going to be interesting to kind of see what people want to talk about. Before we jump into specific titles, I am curious. How did you kind of get into the PlayStation ecosystem? Is this something that you played kind of from the time you were a kid? Did you make a switch on for a specific game? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my I mentioned to before the podcast started, my time with PlayStation as a console started very, very early. I got a picture actually that my mom has hanging up. I think DJ, you probably seen it on the wall when you first walk in my house. It's me sitting on my living room table, like this close to the television screen, playing my PlayStation, playing Tekken 3.
Okay.
I've
Yeah, I
been
do remember that
playing
actually.
I was gonna say I've been playing Tekken on the OG PlayStation for as long, since I was a kid. But I played a lot of the PlayStation 1 exclusives around the time that PS2 came out. I remember I was still in middle school. My dad ended up bringing it home, and I think I probably cried. I was so excited. I
That was
did
me with the
switch
Xbox
over to
360.
It's funny you say that. I did switch over to the Xbox because a lot of my friends at the time were playing like Halo,
Hmm.
and Halo, and I can't remember what else they were playing at the time, but I decided to get a 360 at launch. End up getting the Red Ring of Death within
That
the
also happened
first
to me once.
like maybe week or so,
Hmm.
and that was before anybody like really knew what was causing it and how to fix it and what to do about it. So I sent it in, got another one, got it in the second Xbox I got, and then finally I was like, you know, let's skip this. I'm going back over to PlayStation.
Yeah.
Screw Halo, screw Forza. I don't care about all that
Funny,
shit.
so funny thing. I'm sorry, Miles. We've been friends for almost like 10 years now.
Yeah.
Such a Miles thing. Miles is the most unlucky person ever.
It's just the
Like,
way it works, man.
there's so many examples of that exact kind of story. Like, the one rarity thing would go wrong. Like, Miles, what would happen to Miles? Just what 2 days ago when we were setting up, I'm like, yeah, webcam. He's like, nah, I have a $2,500 camera though. There's like some software you can get, and turns out his $2,500 camera will not act as webcam. Like, it just is such a Miles thing, just super unlucky.
I mean, we
Wow.
eventually got it to work, but not for the service that you use to stream. But
Yeah, it makes
yeah,
sense.
no, I definitely have been unlucky in terms of technology. It just doesn't like me sometimes. But
No, I mean last
Well,
night I thought we were supposed to do this last night, but the outer rings of the hurricane knocked out my internet
yeah,
for a while. But I drove through the shit storm last night to his house to drop off a webcam and a microphone to him. And as like
what a
I
friend.
literally just pulled into his driveway and I got a text message from my wife and like internet's out. And I'm like, well, fuck. I'm glad I drove through all this shit to do this, right? And I'm
yep.
driving back, hoping the internet like will come back. And I'm getting like the final like 5 minute stretch on Highway 64 to my house, and all I see is blue flashes. Right, like I saw like probably 10 or 11 of them. Right, on the last like 2 miles of like the little area I live in, and I was like, man, what the fuck is that? Well, that's what it looks like. Transformers are blowing up. So I was like,
Oh
yeah,
no.
definitely not gonna do this shit tonight.
Yeah,
Well,
saw that
that's
around my house
that's a good
yesterday
time.
too.
So you've been playing for since pretty early on. You PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3.
Yep,
Yep.
PSP. I did not have a Vita, but I played a lot of PSP. Some of the best games were definitely on PSP. I was definitely a Sony jacked up by not putting more love to that thing. But yeah, I've played pretty much. I've been playing Sony games for a minute,
Okay. All right. So
definitely.
you got probably the most credibility then would be my guess. I don't really know your background with Sony specifically, DJ. Um
Mine's so I PS3 and
mhm.
PS5. That's it.
Okay.
So I
Was it
played
a
Sony
specific game that
games.
pulled you over?
Um, so I ended up like for my PS3, I had a buddy who had it, and I had an Xbox 360 was the equivalent, I believe, right?
I think so.
And there was some Xbox games I was playing, and then he had some like PS exclusives that he was playing. And actually, Miles, you probably remember him, Myron.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah,
yep.
because we all went to boot camp together. But I knew Mutt since I was a little kid. But we ended up just switching one day because I wanted to play some PlayStation games I've never played before, and he wanted to do the same thing for Xbox. Essentially, for him, it was he wanted to play Forza, which I've already spent many hours in, and I wanted to play Uncharted, and that's when I fell in love with on I think there's two games Uncharted games that came out on PS3, and I played the shit out of them. They were so good. My
Yep.
first experience of like what I would consider like a movie game because it
Yep.
wasn't
Like a
almost
narrative
like you were
kind of.
playing a game.
Yeah, definitely.
It was like you were watching a movie, and
Hmm.
like that's and then I went back to Xbox One when that released, and I didn't get PS4. I don't think I've even touched a PS4 honestly. And then now I got the the old PC PS5 setup, which I think is ideal
Yep.
uh, in
Yep.
our generation right now.
No, definitely. Yeah, I'm kind of. I would say my Sony pass is actually pretty similar to that. So basically the entire time growing up. Nintendo 64 was my first one, and then as soon as Halo came out, I had some friends that had it, and I was like, "Yep, that's for me." So I got all of the Xboxes essentially up until this last generation. Um, I own them at some, mostly Xbox. I had a buddy of mine who ended up living with me for a little while, teenagers, and he had a PS3, and we were playing. It was Metal Gear Solid 4. We were playing over there, and I'm someone who at that time in my life was really, really into like firearm and that sort of thing, and I owned a rifle at home and was like, I loved kind of tinkering on that and then going to shoot. And then the fact that you could have this like super high level of customization on your guns in Metal Gear, I thought was really cool. On top of the fact the story was decent and the gameplay was fantastic. So he in that PS3 when he went off to the army because he was like, I'm never gonna have. And so I played. I think I jumped into the Uncharted games as well. There, DJ, about and was pretty impressed. Just, I mean, by seeing, based on those two detail that I was getting, and I don't, at least, I can't think of currently a game where Xbox was trying to push the limits. Sony really put a lot of faith and finances into their first party PS3, PS4 days. So anyway, I ended up buying a PlayStation 4 out. Not that that was a PlayStation title specifically, but it was only going to be on consoles at the time, not for PC. And I had wanted to play Bloodborne on PS4, so it gave me kind of an excuse to get one. Like they ran like a special on the PS4 Pro bundle, and I ended up picking that up. And what I did was I bought all of the Sony first party titles on the PlayStation and played everything else on my PC. And then was lucky enough during the PS5 shortage, which I think is supposedly still going on, right? I got really lucky and Sony contacted me and was like, "Hey, for the next 24 hours, you can buy one direct from us. Follow this link."
Yes,
Okay,
please.
cool. Yeah, like I can't get a
Yes,
graphics card.
button.
Had a PS5 in like 2 days because their shipping was super, and was off on the Demon Souls remake, and a bunch of other stuff after that. So, a big fan of Sony, but specifically their narrative-based titles. That's almost exclusively first-party stuff. Like almost that they're putting out. You can only get it on PlayStation. Usually, it's got a fantastic story.
Yeah.
And some interesting thing that makes you want to play it. But the thing that I really love about those titles is really probably the level of pop. Every first-person Sony game that we're gonna talk about, if I had to guess, was like, as far as gameplay experience goes, pretty good from the jump. The only one that I can think of that was kind of like at the beginning is probably Days Gone. And DJ, I know you love that game, and quite frankly, so do I. So I'll talk about that at some point in the next little bit. But that's
Yeah,
the
I have
only
a
one I
big
can think
rant
of that
about.
had like a shaky, been like A plus, good to go. But anyway, somebody talk to me about their favorite right now. Like, what's the one that jumps to mind? Just like the fucking best Sony game that you've played.
I mean, I'll go ahead and kick it off unless you got something, DJ. But
No, man, go ahead. You're the guest.
uh, yeah, for me, honestly, my number one game of all time, which I don't say that very lightly, is The Last of Us. The first time I played through The Last of Us on PS3, I I can't remember what other zombie game was like supposed to come out around that same time, but I wasn't following either one of them very closely. And whenever the drop happened for The Last of Us, I actually thought it was the other zombie game. Like once again, I can't remember what it was, but I ended up
Mm.
pre-ordering it, bringing it back to the barracks at the time, and playing through it the entire game that night. I I think I sat and finished it in like 8 hours, 8 9 hours or
I
so.
think I remember that.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I remember when. I think you were with me when we went to go pick it up. Which
I think
I didn't have a
so.
car back then, so you probably took me to go pick it up.
I more than likely did. Yeah.
You probably did, but I I don't think before I played that game, like I played the Uncharted games before, and
Mhm.
they're obviously made by Naughty Dog, same company, and the the narrative kind of like cinematic presentation of the game I experienced before, but not like that. I feel like the how how that story was told on such a like personal level to make you really feel. I mean, I know it's a cliche thing to say, but like really feel like you were kind of experiencing the tragedies and everything going on in that game, and just the gameplay and everything. It definitely like that game impacted me for sure. It made me like appreciate the medium of video games even more than I had previously.
Yeah, I can identify with like all like everything you're saying. Essentially, I think The Last of Us did that for a lot of people. I think for people who maybe even into um into video games, like I've seen videos and talk to people where maybe they watched a playthrough of this thing that they were hearing about. And I mean, if you don't get your heartstrings pulled at in the first hour of that game, you might want
Yeah,
kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like it's they don't start that off kind of
I was
lightly.
gonna say shit. The first 10 minutes
Yeah,
after
yeah. I mean,
you know what I'm
it
saying, Ellie
really is
died.
set. Between like the music and the characters and the writing and really everything. I just this atmosphere that it was very grounded. Like it felt like people you might know
Yeah,
going through
it definitely
unthinkable circumstances.
it definitely had uh that fantastical element to it in terms of a zombie apocalypse or what is
Y-
it called, the cordyceps and whatnot. But
Yeah,
yeah, I agree with you 100%. The realism factor and the fact that you're still escaping and playing a video game, it definitely it sucked you in. It sucked you in. They definitely did a great job. This guy's name Neil Druckmann, the writer director,
yep.
definitely has a way of creating a evocative story and creating a dense world
I
to get
have
lost
to
in.
check something really fast. I don't.
I will say,
He
because
did the first one. He did
I've
the
not
second
beat The
one for
Last of
sure.
Us yet. I've not beat it yet. I'm like probably
Ooh,
halfway through, and I want to complete it, but I want to, because there's so much, it's such a big title and there's so much around it. I want to give it like my full attention. And nowadays, with being a father, doing the podcast
life
thing,
in
it's
general.
hard to like, kind of really get into a game now, which is unfortunate. But
Yeah, no, I
um,
hear you.
I
I
mean,
hear
I'll
you.
tell you one thing. I was playing it in the story, like at the beginning of it, and I'm like, yeah, the story's like okay or whatever. Spoiler alert. Uh, when his daughter dies, that was like the first like oh shit moment. Like that
Yeah,
moment
that's
right
what I
there.
meant.
Yeah,
Like
that
the
sucks
first
you
10
right
minutes.
in. You're like, no shit. Oh fuck. Like that gets you right into it. And I think after that little scene, I think I played probably like 3.5 hours straight, which I rarely do now. I mean, that's playing that many hours consecutively is not a thing that I do very often. And that got me right there. I was like, oh, now I want to continue and keep doing it. And I need to get back into it. And I probably can get the new one, the remastered one, or remade, whatever.
It's a
What is that
remake, yeah.
considered?
It's a
Remake?
remake, yeah.
Yeah, complete remake.
It up remake, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah,
voice
I'll probably
actors
get
came
that.
back in.
I do
Yeah,
have some just some thoughts about the remake in general, and just kind of the culture behind that. I, while I agree that bringing a game up to new console standards is never really a bad thing, for adding, granted it is a full-blown remake, like you said, built from the ground up all over again, but for pretty much the same game, that is only but not even 10 years old yet.
Because they had
To
remastered it already.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. It came out on PS4. I played it, I want to say twice while it was still on PS3. I played it again on PS4. Now that it's on PS5 and it's once again a full $70 price tag, I don't know that I can warrant going back to playing the game for a fourth time and spending, the full amount on it.
My big
But
gripe with it too. I totally agree with that. I've only played the first one once. I played one once. I've beaten them both, but just one playthrough each. And
so
I played
unfortunately,
the
go ahead.
remastered version on PS. I never played the original, but I thought the same thing when they put that out. Like, I think it looks amazing. Like The Last of Us Part One looks incredible, and I did love that game. If I had to pick one of the two, um, story wise, no question, the first one. The second one is like a cinematic experience, right? Like I've never
Yeah.
seen a game that has that much polish, really. But story wise, the first one was amazing, and I am tempted to kind of go back to it. But for me, that $70 price tag, that's like a wait for sale kind of thing. I've already played the game. I don't maybe over Christmas when that thing goes to like 50, I pick it up. But
Catch
I
that Black
probably won't
Friday
before
sale.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
that's pretty much exactly where I'm at with it. I actually didn't finish part two. It's a funny story.
I was a fan of it because that game was so like controversial. Like, what were your thoughts around it?
Yeah. So believe it or not, I have not spoiled that game for myself yet. Anything I see on the internet in terms of like the ending of that game, I just steer clear from.
Okay.
Because I do still want to experience it. But what I did was I started the game out on grounded mode because I thought I was a badass. I'm like, oh, I've beat The Last of Us, 3 times prior. Grounded mode, yeah, easy peasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got to a point in the game where I kept respawning and I had no ammo, and I couldn't I couldn't get back to a prior save point. It was like an auto save where I just kept respawning with
Oh
a
no, yeah.
room full of like clickers and human enemies and everything. And next thing you know, I'm just stuck. And then I end up getting busy in real life, and I just never came back to it.
Yeah,
But
I hate when stuff like that happens. It's only happened to me like a handful of times in a few games where some autosave feature like overwrote my last actual save. And
yeah,
then when I went to like reload it up, it doesn't exist anymore. So you're just stuck in whatever shit situation you're sitting in.
yep. I sat there stuck on that for I want to say the better half of a week, and just eventually gave up on it. I was already like not too far to where I got a chance to like really experience the game, but
Hmm.
far enough where I didn't want to start it over. At least not right away. And I was just
Yeah.
like, you know what? I'm just gonna just put it on the back burner for now. Add it to the backlog.
Yeah. Experience with that game and I did finish it. And it is a game in its own right. I think a lot of the controversy was around um like the right.
Well, so I got where did I leave off?
Like there's a certain gets his head
Yeah,
absolutely clubbed
yeah,
in. Okay, cool.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah,
all
definitely.
right. So everyone knows Joel's dead. All
Yeah,
right, great.
yeah, no,
Cool. I was making sure I wasn't going to spoil that live. That would
yeah,
have been
no,
Yeah, I didn't
heartbreaking.
know that. Thanks. Appreciate that.
well,
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 you
screw
should
you,
play
DJ.
it.
No, that's
Play
my
the
That's all
game.
I'll
fault.
say.
That's my fault. I'm like
It's a
years behind. I should have
four-year-old
played it.
game. It's
Yeah,
like
But
Game
no.
of
people,
Thrones spoilers. Like, yeah, come
yeah,
on now.
I
Ned
think
Stark gets his fucking head chopped off at the end of the first season.
that's true. That's true.
It's
I
true.
thought that was a
Yes.
joke. I
Spoiler
thought they were
alert.
going to bring him back. Never happened. Anyway,
Yeah.
different franchise, different set of spoilers there. Uh, but yeah, no, I think that like that part to me, like when I first played it, I didn't like it, but the more that I've had time to like think about it, I mean that whole universe, there's just no like, there's no moral high ground. Like everybody's doing shit that really is like, you're trying to survive, man. Like we're not really keeping tallies at this point. You have people left and right. You also have things trying to eat you and groups of very wary of strangers or sometimes just straight up hostile. So you know what am I looking at? Is that a fucking hockey score, DJ?
Dude, nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Not at all.
Listen,
It's the preseason.
it doesn't matter.
It's
Miles
the
is a big
preseason.
Chicago fan, and any opportunity to talk shit to Miles, I'm all about. That's like the basis of our relationship.
Well,
So,
send him a DM.
I was gonna say, go ahead and count up how many championships your state has versus Illinois, and
video
then
game
come find
related.
me.
How many times have you beat me in NHL, and versus how many times I beat you in NHL?
So before I met you, had literally didn't even know the rules of hockey. So I would hope that you would beat me. But then I actually got good at the game that you introduced me to
You still lost
and started to beat you. But
rarely. Anyway, back to Sony. Fuck.
Mm,
Sorry.
all good. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I think that that bit maybe felt a little forced when I first played it, but after that I got to thinking about it, and I'm just like, no, like This is one of the things I love about these games. They do make you think about the characters and things like that. But
Yeah, 100%.
you you know, Joel wasn't innocent, right? Like
No,
he
not at
did some
all.
shit. If there
He,
was a
he,
chance to cure everyone, he said, "Nah, I don't think so," and
So here's
picked
a
old girl
question
up and walks
for
off.
both of
Right? Like
you.
that's pretty selfish.
yeah, 100%. Well, DJ hasn't finished the first game, so I don't want to
Yeah,
speak
yeah.
too
Here's a
much
question for
about.
both of you though, because you
Okay.
both have played both the games, but more importantly, you finished the first. I have not done that.
All right.
So with Joel as a character being like the protagonist, but
Mm-hmm.
and then also he's still not a great person. How does he compare to Arthur Morgan?
It. I personally think it's so hard to draw the comparison. I mean, you can draw this comparison, but my brain immediately goes, it's hard to because of all the time that you spend in Red Dead as Arthur Morgan. That's like outside of like a story mission, right? You can kind of give him whatever personality you want. You can be a good Arthur. You can be like a really helpful guy. You can be chivalrous. You can only do things that are like good for your gang and then like people around you. Like you really can minimize like how much of a hooligan you are. But then if you want to, you can be like full blown, terror of the prairie kind of guy. Um, so it's hard to draw that distinction because with The Last of Us, like narrative driven experience that like you don't get to Joel, you get to play the version of Joel that the writers thought of. That's the same thing that The Witcher 3 does, where you don't get to build a Witcher and then see how it is. Like you're gonna play as fucking Geralt and you're gonna like it. And if you don't like it, that's fine, but you find another game. That's how The Last of Us is with Joel. Like when you're playing Joel, you don't make your own flavor of Joel. You just play Joel. Um,
Gotcha.
so in that way, I would draw the comparison, but you could. Um, I mean, I think they were both, you know, bad stuff ahead of him. Arthur probably doesn't get as much of a pass because, quite frankly, there were people during that time that lived civilized lives who were bankers or constructionists or whatever, right? Like, you didn't have to be a robber and a con man and a thief, right? Like, that's not, you didn't have to do that. Yeah. It's like Joel doesn't have a choice. He can either be killed by this world that he finds himself in, or he can do what he needs to do to survive. So like you know what I mean? Like the set of choices that
Yeah.
Joel gets is way worse than what Arthur has in front of him.
So the comparison I was trying to make was that both characters. So and this is involved like in the main story elements of like Red Dead 2 is they're not great people, but they have to do they're almost like underlined like kind of wrapped in good, right? Some of these elements, and but they also
It's like an
meet
anti-hero.
yeah, like an anti-hero, right? It's perfect actually. But they both die in shitty ways, right? And it's
So yeah,
Yeah.
I can't speak too much to Arthur Morgan. Honestly, I haven't played any of the Red Dead games. I know.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
super
I've
late.
already shamed
It's
him
one of
about this.
yeah, it's added to the mountain of games that are getting added to the backlog every day. But
It should be to the top of your list, honestly. I'm telling you, Rick. We talked about it on the podcast before, but Red Dead 2 might be
it's a
the
generational
yeah.
experience for
I mean,
sure.
it's one of a kind. It's fucking
It'll be quite a
phenomenal.
while before you see another game that's gonna have that level of just that
Immersion.
level of polish. Yeah, like you won't. It's so hard to even think about another game that's that big that has.
Yeah,
But
it's
anyway,
yeah. Anyway,
yeah, no, I'm definitely looking to cross that bridge at some point once I begin to tackle that backlog. But in terms of well, I can't really make a comparison to Arthur Morgan's character, but Joel as a whole, the set of like Tyler was saying, the set of choices that's presented to Joel along with the rest of the characters within that world, I, there are no good guys. There can't be. Everyone has to make tough choices in order to just survive in that world, and the game does such a great job at like putting you right in the thick of that. And while you understand the I guess like some of the bad things that Joel has to do, he also makes some choices that he doesn't have to make. And that's what the specific one that we're talking about at the end of the first game, that just comes down to, okay, while he's doing things out of necessity, he still also has that little bit of like selfishness in there that causes him to go down the path that he does, and ultimately it ends up, bringing him to his demise. But at the end of the day, does that make him a bad person? And I feel like that's what the conversation is, or that's what the game is trying to make you kind of think about, is like,
Yeah.
does that choice make him a bad person?
I will say, Miles, do you have kids by chance?
No, not
Okay.
yet.
So I will say that now that I'm thinking about that, because I've had children, but now that I do and I'm considering what he was being asked to do,
Mm,
I don't think, and that is scary because I know what that means for society. But truthfully, this was going on in real, in it now. And my only chance to help others is my son.
Yeah, it's
okay,
hard.
that's
It's hard
that's
to
a
think
tough
I
ass
about.
choice.
and
That's a
not
tough choice.
like if it wasn't my kid, I'd be the first to tell you, like, listen, like one life should not outweigh a million people. That doesn't make sense. But at the same time, like I don't know how you put a value on something like even if it's not your kid, like even if it's just a life like someone that like if you don't know the person, it's so abstracted from you that you could say, like you know what, yeah, do it. It's worth it. Like we should be able to save everybody. But then like if you put that person in front of you, you know what I mean? Like if you could see the person in question and know that they had, you know, and people that love them and thoughts and dreams and like all this stuff, like it's not so abstract anymore. Like I don't want to make that choice.
Yeah, the concept of to me personally, like what is good character building, and like how to get someone, a viewer, or someone playing the game, to really sympathize with the character, is putting them in situations where you really can't choose. Like, you don't know. There's such a moral gray area of, like, okay, is this guy a good Samaritan, or is he just an evil bastard? Like, even the best villains, they try to get you to sympathize with their cause. As the ends justify the means, and at the end of that game, you definitely sit there and go like, man, is that, it just keeps the conversation going, which is why I feel like the ending of that game held such a longing or lasting impact on me after I finished it. Which
Yeah.
I'm trying to kind of talk around it, because I know
Yeah, don't
DJ
say it.
hasn't.
Just
Yeah,
don't ruin it for me.
yeah.
I'm gonna
Like
play
I
it.
said, I'm trying to tiptoe around,
Yeah.
just explicitly saying it. But
The question yeah, I mean the choice you're faced with at the end of the game. And I truthfully actually I'm glad that oh, man, it's a spoiler, dude. I can't talk about it.
Don't
yeah,
Damn
I'm
don't.
about
it.
to
You know what?
say.
How about this? Let's move on to a different title. We've been talking about Last
Okay.
of Us for a long time, and if you guys ruin it for me,
All right, I can do
Hey,
that.
I'm
All
gonna be
right.
sure,
fucking pissed.
respect it.
So
Last
let's move on.
Last of Us is I would
Everybody dies.
say yeah.
Miles, I know where you fucking live. Okay, I can drive to
I
your
think
house right
Sony did
now.
such an amazing job, and I think that's like you can tell that from looking at the way that people talk about the game. And oh, by the way, the fact that HBO thought, you know what, let's spend lots of money to make a series about this. That's how good the story is. Because not only did it
100%.
make a good video game, they thought, oh, this is a series, and we're not talking about one of these straight to TVs. We're talking about primetime HBO premium cable network. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna hit this with good acting, good writing, great atmosphere, and a pretty good budget. So,
We hope.
well, I mean, they got Pedro Pascal on board, and you and I talked the last little bit, but like he's Brad Pitt, but he's been in a lot of stuff lately. You know what I
He's
mean?
been
Like
like
he's a
everything.
pretty dude's
So
in the last
he made
couple of
it
years.
because he got killed by Denzel, who is the greatest actor of all time. So he
What are you
made it.
talking about? What is that in?
Equalizer 2.
Dude, like 7
I,
people
I'll,
saw
I'll,
the Equalizer 2. I
Oh, whoa, whoa,
as
whoa,
much as the
whoa.
next
Hold
guy.
up. First off,
I
is a
second that, by the way.
fantastic fucking movie. Don't ever disrespect a
I
Denzel
love
movie
Denzel
ever
as much
again.
as the next guy, okay? Frank from American Gangster is one of my favorite characters in cinema. Like, you know what I mean? 3 or 4
I mean,
times a week, I
Training
have a
Day.
buddy send me the GIF where he's like, "My man, all right, great character," but
Sorry, I'm taken aback
no
by
one saw
your
the
comment.
Equalizer 2.
I saw it. Miles,
Well,
did you
I'm
see it?
glad I saw it too, but I'm
No.
saying,
No, along with 99% of the rest of the world. No.
yeah,
Miles, reminded me why we were friends.
You tell me, bud.
I don't
You
know.
tell me.
anyway,
No, I mean, Pedro Pascal, I definitely agree. He's definitely a trending, surging actor in terms of like the last 5 to 10 years. I definitely respect his talent. Him getting waxed in Game of Thrones will forever be
Oh, I totally forgot about that.
stuck in my mind.
that's one of the worst
That and
deaths in that whole show, dude. Oh my
that
god,
and just him and his performance in Narcos too was excellent. But
amazing.
I don't
Fuck, he
I
was in
don't
that
know.
too.
Hey,
He's
that's what I'm
literally in
saying. That's what I'm
everything.
saying.
Dude,
But
he killed that Narcos role though.
100%.
That's my
100%.
favorite work he's done, I think.
Yeah, I think that or Game of Thrones. The whole Martell thing was definitely interesting. But I don't know if I like him as Joel. I don't know if I like him as Joel.
I don't
think
I
like.
have some reservations.
I'll
he's-
have to see it, but I agree with you. He doesn't look how Joel sounds.
Yeah, I mean, I think because I mean, he can step outside of the box. I feel like he's not really like a one-dimensional actor in terms of like what type of character he can play. Because I mean, him doing the Mandalorian too, I feel like that's
Yeah,
kind of
that's true.
outside of his like kind of well, it is alongside like the stoic kind of performance he usually gives. But
Yeah, but he did
I
that
just
ultra charismatic Martell performance, and he's really
yeah,
charismatic in the unbearable weight or massive weight of unbearable talent with Nicolas Cage. Which, if you
Is
guys
that
haven't
good?
seen that, check it out. It's wild.
Okay, yeah, I want to see
yeah,
that.
I'll add
Yeah,
that to the list.
you know who would have been perfect for Joel?
Hmm.
John Hamm.
I can't see him in anything other than Mad Men or progressive commercials. So
Really?
yeah, it's
Okay, now I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, John Hamm. Like
Yeah.
Tag. He's in a whole bunch of shit. I think with a beard, I think he'd have been perfect. Or him or Bradley Cooper would be pretty good.
Bradley Cooper would have been a probably a
Yeah.
pretty good take.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
let's
would-
stop talking about. We need to stop talking about Last of Us. This whole episode's
yeah,
a fucking
yeah,
Last
that's
of Us
true.
episode right now.
Now, what's our timer?
We're like 30 minutes of just Last of Us.
Okay,
I mean,
all right.
it's a great game.
To
but
be fair,
agreed.
It is
that's
good.
that's
Agreed.
It's fine.
a peak song.
If this whole episode goes long, it's a 2-part. Like whatever, not a big deal.
Sure.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit?
All right,
Fuck
so DJ, what about you, man? What is your favorite Sony first-person title?
I want to talk about Days Gone.
Okay, that's great. I love that game. Let's do it.
Miles has never played it.
Okay.
But I think Days Gone might be the most underrated Sony first person title because it, for some reason, and I think it's because it had a rocky start.
Yeah, it had some
just
technical
didn't-
issues at the beginning.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad because it had a rocky start and then they fixed them right, and it was a fucking great game. But Sony kind of like pushed them aside, right? They didn't get like all like the Sony hype of like Ghost of Tsushima or The Last of Us, right? Days Gone was kind of like almost felt like the bastard child of Sony, but it was a fantastic game. I didn't play it till like years after it came out when it
Yeah.
got released on PC, but man,
It was a pretty small release relative to a lot of those. Like the studio that made it, while they do have some titles under their belt, they're not a massive studio, and they like I don't know that Sony thought this was successful. You know what I mean? Compared to some of their other stuff, because I agree was like if you were into video games, right? Like if you're someone who followed, probably knew about it, but otherwise, it's not a game that you were going to accidentally see a TV commercial for or have heard of. Really, unless you had
Yeah.
a really close friend that played it. I would agree with you about that.
that game is, I mean, and it's hard to explain what I mean here, but it was, besides for Souls games, it was probably the best game that would almost build you up, like build your confidence up. And I say that because when you first meet a horde in that game, you're like, holy shit, like I'm not going to even come close to beating that thing, but beating the horde. And then
Quick
like
timeout.
eventually you beat enough hordes where you're like, you get confident about it. You're like, yeah, I'm going to fucking whoop this horde's ass. Like the final horde at the sawmill, like man, I
Yeah.
went into that like full of confidence. Like
Well,
I loved
I
it.
didn't because I knew it was like this is gonna be a bad one. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh
Yeah.
god, like what is this? Like some kind of legendary horde? A quick like shout out because we're in gameplay kind of experience, but like the technology mechanically make the hordes work the way that they did, where it was like hundreds of these and like flowing over stuff, like how you see in like the best.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
The technology, it was horrifying. Like you skirted under a fence where there was like a rickety fence and there was like and then like barbed wire on the top. Like you could legit like turn and watch. And when the horde hit it, like the fence would kind of shake, and then some of them would start skirting up under the bottom, and then you'd have some of them climbing over the top, and like, they're piling on top. Like it was very like realistic is a weird thing to say about zombie apocalypses, but I would say again, it felt like it was grounded in the real world. And was just like horrifying that like 28 days later, here's a wave of zombies.
Yeah.
They did really good on that. So I just wanted to
Another
give a
cool
shout out
thing,
to the devs for that.
because of the hordes, like that little aspect of like there's hordes around, it almost drove you to do all like the crafting bits to get like upgraded craftable throwables, like the big Molotov and whatnot.
Yeah,
Like it drove you to do that kind of stuff. Like in most games where like you could craft,
the top upgrade for that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, dude,
and
this
you
shit
could,
was wild. You got a jug
yeah,
cycle.
yeah.
Don't
Most games
wreck.
have like extra crafting stuff. Like you don't necessarily have to do those, but in that game, like you almost felt like you probably didn't have to, but you wanted to
It
do it,
was
right?
really beneficial.
You wanted to strategize how you conquered those hordes, and that little aspect was, I mean, it was chef's kiss, super good. And not this doesn't even involve like the story. The story itself was actually really was phenomenal as well. Like
It was
that
a
was
little
such a
cheesy in parts. Like it's
it
some of the
was
characters are pretty on the nose for like that like biker bro thing. But I
yeah
will say I thought the story was pretty well written and there's so much of it. Like you get if you love like if you're one of those who's listening and you're like, man, I love Sony first person titles, but like The Last of Us, it can be beaten in 8 hours. I don't know if it was worth the full price tag kind of thing. Like that is not going to be your experience with Days Gone. That is a big, big game. Like every time I would get to a new area, I would be like, oh, this must be the ending. And they'd be like, welcome to a new fucking zone with new
yeah
characters and new stuff to do. I'd be like, holy shit. All right, here we go.
yeah. That game was really good at like keeping your attention too, because once you get into the thick of it, like you don't want to stop. You don't want to play another game. Like you just want to keep going. You want to finish what you started.
Miles, do you
And
know the
How
premise of that game?
vaguely. Like I'm familiar with it. I definitely was aware of it before it came out because
Hmm.
like I agree with you. Like to the people who are outside of like the gaming community and follow up on games that they're looking forward to coming out and out don't really don't just see marketing for games on television and whatnot and just completely goes under the radar. I definitely was aware of the game, but I didn't it ended up get it added to the backlog. But now I understand the premise of the game. I just
Okay.
didn't get a chance to play it.
really quick, someone just posted in on Twitch in the chat, like John Krasinski would have been a great
Yeah, he would
uh
have been a great
Yeah.
Joel,
Joel. Dude, bang
right?
in what's
Yeah,
it called? Quiet Place too.
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah. You know that's funny because you said that he's like a lot of people were saying John Krasinski from A Quiet Place would have been a good Joel, and I was like,
Because it was
eh,
Joel. It was like the same guy.
yeah, essentially, right?
100%.
As soon as he
That's probably
said
what
that, I
happened.
was like, dude, that would have been that perfect,
I
perfect.
bet.
John
Anyway, back
Krasinski
to
gets fan
I
Days
bet
casting
Gone.
John
and like everything,
played.
but
Dude, I got to make a movie. It's gonna be totally original. Totally original, guys. But hear me
totally.
out.
It's not zombies though; it's fucking
It's fucking
aliens, okay? And
aliens.
they can't see; they can only hear, okay? So
So
To be fair,
Clippers.
I'm totally joking about copyright and plagiarism, but and I
Quiet
thought the
Places.
Quiet Place movies were
Oh,
check 'em
fantastic.
out. Yeah.
Fantastic movies.
Anyway, back to regular.
but yeah, no, I definitely I want to play the game. So, or the question I was gonna ask you guys about how long would you say on average take you to get through it?
It's 60
Uh,
plus for me.
yeah. So the story probably is 30 hours if I had to guess. Like if you just did
If
the
you
story
only did
elements.
that, maybe. Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah, but it it drives you to explore. It's very good at like driving you to go and do all the extra shit that like it's not even like I have to go do this shit because like I have to do this to beat this. Like you want to do it. Like you're excited to do it, and there are very few games that can do that correctly. And Days Gone is a great example of driving the player to actually explore the entirety of the game. Like I went through and they have New Game Plus too. I beat the game like twice, like back to back. Like I beat it when New Game Plus did it all over again, and it is so good. I mean the combat's
Yeah.
good. The motorcycle riding in the game is probably the best in recent memory of motorcycle riding in games.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's
The
just
upgrading the
enough
bike.
realism too where it feels good. Like where
Yeah,
upgrading your gas tank is a big deal because like you'll run out of gas if you have to go
yeah,
across the map and you need to find like stations to like fuel up and that ain't you know what I mean? Like you need to plan your route kind of thing at that point. A lot of really cool, maybe like more survival elements than what you might expect. Just like it might be, kind of arcadey a little bit, but it's I love those little touches of like the actual like survival genre. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I need to go check out this
Yeah.
garage and scrap for parts and see if I can fill up, before we head off to go to wherever else. Like, I loved it. I thought the upgrade system was amazing.
yeah. It's
So
go ahead, Miles.
I'm
I want to say,
snacking, by
let
the
me
way.
ask you guys this, because I haven't played the game yet, but why do you think the game had like such a rocky start, or wasn't as successful, obviously, as the developers planned?
I think so. I think with Sony and their first party titles, I think there's like a standard. Like Sony almost feels like the tuxedo of like the gaming industry, right? Like they have like a standard, and I think when the game was released, it was a very small studio. Bend's studio is not very big, and they're in Bend, Oregon, which is also where the game is. Just is it's in Bend, Oregon, right? The game is,
Mhm.
and when it came out, it wasn't like that polished, perfect, like God of War or Uncharted. Like it wasn't like that perfect piece game, and it wasn't bad, right? It was playable, but there was
Wasn't
some
wasn't
like
Cyberpunk?
it wasn't
No,
no, it
it was
ain't not
like
even fucking close.
I played it when it. So when I say that there was like problems, I experienced that time with the game. I think it was mostly just like little graphical hiccups. I mean, there weren't
Nothing
like I
game
mean, I didn't
breaking.
have any game breaking bugs. Like I had no save corruptions. I didn't have anything where like a level that I needed to beat bugged out and broke. Like none of that happened to me. It was more like you'd be driving your motorcycle at a smooth 60 FPS and then all of a sudden it'd be like spike and it'd hiccup, right? And you might run into a tree, but like it dropped to 30%, 30. So it wasn't anything crazy. And truthfully, in PC gaming these days, like how that game launched is how a lot of games launch. Issues and stuff like that. Like that really was it. The game itself was experience.
Yeah, it was
I
it was solid. I just don't think it was that perfect little gift that Sony likes to present with their first party titles.
well, something to
And
think about. This is something that I thought about, Miles, when you were asking that question.
Mhm.
Days Gone has all of the first party polish that you would expect from God of War, The Last of Us, that sort of stuff, right? Pretty cinematic. Um, Voice acting is like a big part of it.
yeah,
Um, and they
character
nailed
building.
all that stuff. They nailed it.
Yeah, I
Even
think character building was a really
character
good.
names, like your buddy's name is Boozer, right? And like that's like the most
Yeah,
like laughably stereotypical biker buddy name.
Yeah, 100%.
but the relationship
Um,
between the main character in Boozer is really good, and then the main character, I'm
Incredibly
blanking
well
on-
written. I just mean
I'm
like
blanking on
literally
his
like the
name.
name I thought was so. I was like, really, you guys can come up with something
Yeah.
slightly better than that, you know? The thing that separates the two though is that the last of we talked about it for so long, it's
Days
on my
Gone.
brain.
Days Gone.
Day was open world, and it was a big open. Of us has like open zones, right? But it's pretty linear.
Yeah.
Like there's one path through the game. God of War is technically, I guess, open world, kind of.
Good.
It's open world, but it's on a smaller scale, right? Can we
Yeah.
agree on?
So yeah, definitely it's open zones, but big ass zones.
Yeah, big ass
But
zone,
there's
just
a
like
lot of
Witcher 3. All right, cool.
yeah, I
DJ,
was gonna say
no
there's a
problem.
lot of guns or games like that.
But yeah, I would say that was probably the big difference. I think if it had been, a smaller experience, it probably would have run better. But the thing is that it was literally just optimization. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't
Yeah.
that they pushed the boundaries too far. Even like if you play the game now, it's in really, really good shape. Which is good for people who waited, right? Like it's a great story. There's a lot of content. And if you're in a bit of a lull for narrative based games, which I actually think we might be. Like I can't think of what was the last
Yeah,
narrative based game?
recently, I mean, outside
Get the
of like
remake.
Sony exclusive or yeah, facts. I'll pass on that one. But no, I'm definitely excited to be able to like get into that game for sure. Like DJ was saying, Sony has definitely set the standard on the narrative cinematic like based experience in gaming. They
100% agree.
like they've got that shit figured out.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of formula they're working over there, but they've got it.
Interestingly, Sony was like not very good at sharing during the PS3 days, PS4 days, but to PC. I mean, Spider-Man, Last of
Days
Us is
Gone.
still not on PC. Is on PC.
God of
What
War.
else is out there? God of War is now on PC. Yeah, that was the other
Yep.
one.
They kind of have to.
Their titles out there. Well, it
Horizon.
doesn't hurt them, is it?
So this is completely kind of on topic but unrelated. So all three of us, and this wasn't like a planned thing, we all run PC and PS5s, right? And I think most people are doing that now because on the PC you can play all your Xbox games and plus all your PC games, but you got the PS5 to do like your PlayStation stuff. If they essentially moved everything to PC, which would be easy and accessible, that'd be great. But I think Sony's a long way from doing that.
Yeah, I think they're doing it with a lot of their Horizon Zero Dawn. That's another one that's on PC.
Yeah,
Another
I meant to.
actually, but any other like areas of that game that you kind of want to talk about? Anything that really stood out to you? Game.
Oh man, it was so underrated.
I tell you what. Let me ask you a story based question.
All right.
And Miles, this is a mild spoiler.
Should I earmuffs?
Can you do that? I don't know. You know what? Never mind.
Yeah,
We'll
no,
move
it's all
along.
good.
I was going to ask you about how you felt when a certain person pops up and you're like, oh my God. But then you had to weird, right?
I'm trying to remember what it was. It's been a while since I played it.
All right, never mind. It's like it's
my
a hard
memory's
spoiler.
shit. I know.
Big
Yeah.
story spoiler, so I'll just move along. All right, so Days Gone, DJ, that is one of your favorite first persons in memory or first parties. I keep saying first person.
Yeah.
That's tricky. It's fine. Okay, all right. So you got that's two really good ones. So I would say if I had to pick a favorite that was not one of the two of those,
Oh, I think I know what you're gonna say.
go ahead, take a shot.
You're gonna talk about ghosts.
Yeah.
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 I
So
respect it.
I mean, Bloodborne is the easy one for us. We're both big Bloodborne guys. But
fan. Not gonna pick on that again. For fans of the show, if you listen to more than literally episode, you heard me talk about. Not even talk. That's I'm like gushing over Bloodborne every time.
Yeah, we had an entire episode of Bloodborne, so we're not going to go into Bloodborne probably.
Big fan.
Today.
Go play it if you want, but
Get good.
It ain't the normal. Yeah, it's not the normal Sony experience. What we're talking about now, about all these narrative experiences, that was like, oh, the voice acting is pretty good in Bloodborne for what, like it. You'll have to mind that stuff yourself. You'll
Yeah,
have to
FromSoft is not
get
a
on
Sony
YouTube
exclusive. Yeah, FromSoft
they
is not
tell
a
amazing
Sony
stories,
exclusive.
but they make you figure it out.
Secondhand storytelling.
Yeah,
Whatever.
they're
Yeah,
also not a Sony exclusive studio like Naughty Dog is.
No, but Bloodborne, for people who lived under a rock, is exclusive game that they've done. No, that's not true.
Demon Souls, 2 of them.
Is also exclusive.
Yeah.
So correction there. But Bloodborne is a Sony exclusive, and that's why no one thinks we'll ever get a second one, which makes me want to cry actual tears on this show. But I'm gonna move along. So,
I didn't beat it, but that was actually my first From Software game. That
did you play it by
I
yourself
attempted.
or with a friend?
I played it by myself.
Okay.
I knew about From Software games, or I knew that there was a very like cult following amongst the Souls fans, and I decided to hop into Bloodborne, and I think I probably spent maybe 5 hours in that first town area, just trying to banging my head up against the wall to get good.
You know what?
And,
This is a good idea. This is completely kind of unrelated, but we should all three play it again. I know Tyler's always down to play Bloodborne. I'm down to play it. Miles, I think we guide you through it.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I made it pretty far. But once again, around that time of my life and just being on the boat and whatnot, when I got frustrated with a game, I didn't have very much persistence. I kind of just like, there's too many games out. I'm gonna play another game.
Halloween this year is a Monday, but Bloodborne. I start a new playthrough and I play through Bloodborne every Halloween. So, you guys are cordially invited to T's annual Bloodborne sprint.
We should stream it.
We could do that.
Good.
It would be fun.
Yeah.
A late stream because we'll trick or treat with not Brittany's little brother and sister, but I'd be super happy to a couple of beers and run through all of that game.
I definitely.
If we had to wait for 2 people to connect, would probably take us 36 hours. Through
Yeah.
the
more time
8
to
hours
drink.
of content. Yeah.
But anyway, Ghost of Tsushima, top 5. Miles, what do you think?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's my favorite game on the PS4. It was my favorite PS4 exclusive.
That is my PS4 and PS5 exclusive because I can't think of a PS5 game I've played better than the director's cut.
Did you play the Iki Island
Yes.
DLC?
Yeah.
I still
So
have not gone back to that, but
I will say, just on a mildly related note, that DLC has an armor set that makes if you're good at parrying, like perfect parry builds, if you're good at that, it makes the game completely laughable. Because what happens is if you have this armor set on, and it's a really cool looking armor set, like
Some of the monkey one.
yeah. So the
Yeah.
second version of it, not the first version that has the flat hat, but the one where you first get the cape, and like the kind of tall like crest looking hat. I can't remember what they're called, but there's a black. You can go to like the merchants that have like the different dyes. There's like the black dye, the white dye. There's one of the black dyes for that armor is like this. I mean, absolute drip, dude. Like it's sick. But what it does, that game has like its own special properties. So what this one does, it makes it to where if you can get a perfect parry off, window where like it'll kind of give you the slow mo. You can take 2 attacks every, and I think it goes up to 3 with all the parts damage than like a standard on lethal, which is what I was playing it on, which is like the ultra realistic difficult the block or die. The being able to do a back-to-back like power strike after a perfect parry, it killed anybody. So like bosses that usually would be super difficult, you could wear this armor, and if you could block one of their strikes, hit them no guard for like 2 straight hits. It turned boss fights into what used to take like 5-6 minutes of like dancing around into like 34 to attack twice.
Yeah, that's so when I first got that armor and I was like, oh, this is really cool, but it almost kind of took away from what I think is the best part of the game, which is the combat and the change of stances and whatnot. So like I switched back to whatever the oh man, I forgot the family's name already, but the family armor, like because I think that was the coolest armor in the game.
The Sakai armor.
Yeah,
Sakai.
Sakai. Yeah, I'd get the Sakai armor and then I dye it all black, like black it out.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had an all white version of it too.
Ghost
The second
mode.
time I played through, it was pretty dope. But
For sure.
I was a big fan of
You
the
know,
red version of that armor.
I think there is a red version of that armor. I
It's
think
really
that is
cool.
dependent on how you end the game. But
Really?
anyway, so the white and the red are depending on your choice. The very end of the game when you're
The white you
spoiler
can
alert.
buy from a merchant. For sure.
I'm thinking I'll get it straight up. I can't remember what exactly.
Anyway.
But there's 2 different armors you can get, or armor dyes you can get from the very end of the game, depending on your choice that you make. Spoiler alert: when you're fighting your uncle. But
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, DJ, in terms of that in-game armor from the DLC. Like, I think I agree with you. The combat in that game is fantastic in terms of the the balance between the arcadiness of just making you feel like a badass samurai, but also not too overly challenging to where it kind of feels like a Souls game, and having like some in-game armor stuff that can kind of break the experience. I feel like they create that stuff for you to just be able to have fun with it, like to create those nasty builds at the end.
I will say, I think the difficulty is wildly subjective because they built that game where you a standard role playing game where you have a good, a health pool up and that sort of thing. And like you can upgrade your weapon to do more damage or stagger damage. And the stagger mechanic's really, really well done. So for people who
Yeah.
want to play it, what I would consider like standard difficulties, you can do that and enjoy all of that stuff. But after launch, the first patch brought the lethal mode and lethal plus. What it does is it makes it so that the sword stick, and what I mean by that is it's like 1 to 2 is max, and your opponent is dead or you are dead, and that's interesting because there are situations in that game where you will fight big groups of enemies, and like they were talking about earlier, change your stance to kind of counteract the like fighting style of your enemy. So lethal plus fight camp was incredibly intense because you had to be on top of switching stances. Like you had to. There was no question about like, oh, maybe I would use the wrong one for this one encounter, but like, no, you will die for sure. No, gone if you don't switch your stance. And then on top of that, if you wanted to dispatch groups of enemies quickly so that you could get on to trying to clear the rest of them, you had to learn how to do like the perfect parries and the blocks and stuff like that. So it made it a lot more cinematic because all of a sudden Jin went from being a sword fighter who, he can take a few hits from a sword, which no one wants to see in a movie or anything like that, into this like old school, like Seven Samurai. It's like perfect combat or death. actually is what elevated that game. Like the story in that, voice acting, graphics, everything. The atmosphere is fucking incredible. And I didn't know I was a. And then I was like, oh no, this is me now. Great. Now our
Yeah.
game is a dex build with a katana. Thanks, guys.
I
But
will say that I think the AI in that game was really good too, because yeah, the different enemy types, but like the different the factions of enemies. So like the Mongolians, they fought like a certain way, but when you fought like the Straw Hat Ronin, like those dudes were like they were serious. Like
They're
those dudes were
methodical
fucking
with it.
hard.
Like
yep.
they almost fought like a player controlled character.
Yeah.
Like it was definitely a lot more like
Steps up the swordplay
premeditated
a lot.
actions before what just going into what they did versus the hyper aggressive Mongols. Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah, the Straw Hats, man, they well fuck. Like
The
there's some times where they give me trouble.
do for me, I think, is the fact that the Mongols fought with a group mindset, and every was like this. It, you know what I mean? But you might be fighting 4 of them. Like one-on-one, like this guy is a master of his craft and so am I. Let's see who comes out of this. So yeah, those fights were amazing.
There was a lot of like honor elements in that game, and you could tell like the Mongol. I was going to say Mongolians, but the Mongolians, yeah, the Mongolians, like yeah, they fought to win, and that it didn't matter what it took for them to win. It was always archer shooting at you while like 3 dudes were attacking you. But like yeah, with the Straw Hat Ronins who were Japanese, like they were just like one on one, like they were honorable fights, and they were difficult because they were hard to beat.
Yeah, no, I think like the concept and the themes of that game like permeated pretty much throughout like the entire experience of the game. Like the whole concept of like tradition versus innovation, of like just the the honorable way of the samurai versus like the aggressive takeover of the Mongols and whatnot. It was explored, I feel, beautifully through the gameplay and through the different actions of the AI and how the story ends up like playing out with ultimately the choice of you becoming the ghost of Tsushima too. Like I think that they did such a great job with the themes and the motifs there.
Yeah, Miles. The thing that jumps out to me as you were um in the very like they there was like no hesitation, I guess, into jumping into that. Remember that first charge down the beach? But like before all of that happens, they send I'm not gonna be able to remember his name. They send that one lord down who's supposed to be like the best sword fighter, but they're very honorable about it. Like they send out their best warrior. He walks right up to him, right? And then the Khan, being the
Dickhead.
I was gonna make you edit again. That was the word that was Khan, and there's another swear word that just rolls right off after that, but I don't feel like having to go bleep that out. But anyway, he's kind of a dickhead, like DJ said. When he lights the guy on fire in front of you, when he's like, "Oh yeah, this will be a duel," they light him on fire and then cut his head off. You know instantly, like, oh, these guys don't fight fair.
Yeah, honor right out the window. We're gonna have to switch it up.
Yeah. The one thing I will say, maybe this is like my one game, is that it gave you this pseudo choice of like, do you want to be honorable or do you want to be the guy? But by Act 2, story wise, which I mean is implied in the name of the game, right? But gameplay wise, you always had this choice of like, well, do I want to be Bushido honoring samurai I was taught to be, or do I want to go poison that drink over there and watch 8 men choke to death on their organs? You was, but once it got into chapter 2, it was kind of like, hey, we're railroading you down this road of becoming the ghost, which is fine because it's an incredibly well done story. But I will say it was maybe a little bit of it felt like a tease, roaming to be able to just walk up and be like, send out your best warriors and then fight everyone openly, which feels amazing.
Yes.
Because that doesn't how Jin is kind of carrying himself at that point. Like he could kill you in one-on-one combat, but he also knows that if he, waits till you're not looking and jumps off the rooftop, like the fight's over and he wasn't at risk.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that dilemma and the gripe that you have is probably the gripe that Jin had, as he's figuring out how to save his people. Like the honor and traditional way of the samurai and the code that they follow isn't going to cut it at this point. Like they're going to have to step outside of the norm in order to survive. So I think the inner conflict that you're experiencing as the player is kind of just bringing you into the experience of the character, him having to make those tough choices to have figure out the balance between, am I going to be this badass ninja, throwing uh you know doing throwing smoke bombs and like you said, jumping off of roofs and stabbing people and using poison, or am I going to show up and challenge uh the biggest swordsman there,
Yeah.
and handle it with honor and tradition.
I think mechanically, again, I'm going to give another mechanic shout out for something that I loved in this game. But speaking of poison, I know it's the second time that's come up. The fear mechanic that game built
Oh,
into up and your legend got bigger, and if you did a perfect parry and or a perfect dodge and that slow mo comes in and you just quickly the guy and he drops dead behind you, like I'm a fucking gangster with this sword, so do not come over here unless you want to get
dude,
it.
when they issued the fear
When people would
mechanic in the
fall down
story,
and try and scurry away from
Yeah.
you, or and from the shadows, and they're like, "Oh God, ghost!" Right, and their buddy's vomiting his lungs out, and everybody scurries. Like that mechanic feels so good.
when they introduced that in the story, when you're doing the battle for that village, and you end up like cutting off their commander's head, and like
Yeah.
when they introduce you to that mechanic, man, talk about like when I went through the second time, that's what I was looking forward to. That whole mission of defending that village against the Mongols, and that whole scene, like it was so badass. Like it
Hmm.
was probably one of the most badass moments in video games in like recent history that I can even think of. Like when he just chops his head off, and they like, oh yeah, by the way, fear mechanic, and then
Yeah.
just like, oh man, it was
I
so
want to
good.
give another just nod to the fact, like I was thinking about as you were talking about, when you're kind of introduced as the good. It's not the same mission, but the one where you defend smithy in that town that's like abandoned.
Yeah,
Essentially,
Yuma,
um,
Yuma. Yeah. Or
Yuna,
yeah.
that's what it was, Yuna.
I thought that like so well done. The English and the Japanese versions. I've played with both dubs with like for the opposite. Um, I thought the English was like incredibly well done, and the Japanese. I don't speak Japanese. It sounded really good to me. Like obviously super authentic, which I guess is really good. But the English version of that just had so much character in it. Like I felt like I could tell. I can close my eyes right now and think about the kind of character that Yuna was strictly from hearing her voice. You were constantly talking to, and she was like the devil on your shoulder, right? Kind of like, hey, I know that you're like a really traditional stand-up guy, but we need to be efficient about this, and we need 15 people to die, and you're one person. So like, how do we do it? You know what I mean? Like she was kind of always the one that was like,
Yeah, she was like the
teach you how to.
she was the realistic one.
She
Where
was, she was. I think by
yeah,
the
Where
end of
you
the
planted
game,
the
you can look
seeds.
at the Bushido and know in the face of that.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, they tell you that in
no,
the
if you
first
think
five
about it,
minutes.
yeah, the main character and Yuna, like their beliefs contradicted each other, but they still had like like a friendly relationship,
Their
and like
chemistry in that game,
it was good. It was good. I mean, oh man, I I want to play the game now. Just talking, we're talking about it, and I just want to go back in and play again
Yeah,
because
but between going back and tackling Days Gone first, or going back into the world of Ghosts to tackle the DLC, I don't know which one I want to do at this point.
Well, I can tell you because you've never played Days Gone that you should probably play Days Gone. I will say this. So this is my rant of the day. Days Gone and Ghosts are very close. They're little tiny elements in Ghosts that will put it above Days Gone in like rankings and whatnot. They sold about the same, I believe, for copies. But Days Gone it was so underrated for what it really is, and I think there's a lot of people out there who have never played it that need to because it is so good.
Yep.
Ben Studio is a phenomenal studio. I hope that we get somebody on from Days Gone that developed that game onto the show because I there's a lot of stuff I want to talk to them about them. But Sony places Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, rightfully so. It was a better game, but they
That
placed
was their
Ghost of
crown
Tsushima on
jewel
this
for the PS4, era.
exactly right. They're like Ghost of Tsushima is the golden boy, can't do no wrong. But and they treat Days Gone like almost like kind of garbage. But in reality, they're not that far apart, right? You're talking about in a world where we have thousands of games and there's a lot of like hundreds of like really great games. I mean, that threshold isn't it doesn't take a whole lot to move up 20 spots in like a top 100 list, right?
Yeah. I would say
And
it's maybe the difference between a really good game and a great game. Like
yeah,
I think
it's
Days Gone is really good. I think Ghost is like probably a top 5. Like it's a great game.
yeah, I think in the long run because they're probably not going to make a Days Gone 2. I think Ben
Maybe
Studio
not.
announced they're making a new game and it's not a Days Gone game, and I think
Yeah.
it's pretty
Maybe they'll
recently.
revisit it at some point though.
Yeah, and they are making a Ghost of Tsushima 2. It's like officially announced, and that's gonna be fantastic. But I think in 5 years' time, maybe 10, I mean, people are gonna look back on Days Gone, and that's gonna be like one of those cult games, like a Resident Evil 4, right? Like one of those cult games you think about, like, oh, man, what a special game that was. I think Days Gone is gonna be in that category.
I will say
Yeah, I
I
can.
don't think it helped itself by being late to the zombie party.
That's literally what I was just about to say. I was
Okay,
like
cool.
that. I think
I'm
I
glad we're
think
on the
uh
same
I
same
think at
wavelength.
that time people were kind of experiencing zombie fatigue,
Some
which
burnout there, yeah.
I would compare it to the like the fatigue of like jump packs in first person shooters. Like around the time that like Advanced Warfare came out, we had like Titanfall and all the other Call of Duties and shit that all were around like the same type of experience. You knew what you were gonna get. And honestly, that's probably what contributed to why I didn't want to play the game when it first dropped too. It's just like, okay, it's another zombie game. Granted, it's not to take anything away from it, but definitely was experiencing a bit of that
I
zombie
think
fatigue at the time.
I think that goes with the
Right end of the zombie fever, and then
Yeah.
yeah. I think I will say that Ben Studio when they probably already knew that when they made this game and they wanted to make it unique. And I think they succeeded, but I think because of the all the zombie games, it that did contribute to like the overshadow, the underratedness of it, which is sad because it really is a fucking great game.
yep, I would agree with that. I think that's probably true. I think they worked on it for a long time, and I think it has that maybe I don't know. It's got something that I think a lot of other zombie games didn't, which is why I chose to play that one. But
What a feeling like you connected with the story, you connected with the character, and
felt grounded again.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
grounded.
Yeah, and the world was beautiful. I mean, it really was. I mean, for a post-apocalyptic Pacific Northwest, like it was gorgeous. That whole like just the I loved it. Oh fuck, I can't even. I want to play that now too. Shit, fuck.
I'm curious because I know we're getting on. Um, kind of what do you all see as like the thing that maybe titles together? And there's so many other first party titles that first person party. Jesus, it's not first person, Tyler.
Words.
Someone tell me. Yeah. I think one of the threads that's common to all of these first part. I mean they're narratively all really strong, but like what do you guys see as the thing that like kind of ties these together? And we could
Are
have
you
talked
talking
about
about
any, like, there's
just
so many other games we could have talked about. God of War, Spider-Man, both of those are
fantastic
perfect
games?
kind of games we've been talking about tonight.
So
But
for those 3 titles, I got 3 different things. So I will say for The Last of Us, it's the story. The story is the X factor, right? For Ghost of Tsushima, for me personally, I think the combat would be the X factor. Not taking away from the story because the story is great, but the combat mechanics are the X factor. With Days Gone, I think the world itself and the ability to drive the player to go do the extra shit that you don't necessarily have to do. I think that would be the X factor for Days Gone. Like, there's a lot of different things that all 3 of those games have in common, but each does one aspect a little bit differently than the other, and it kind of like works. I mean, they're 3 completely different games. The stories in all 3 are fantastic, but each has an element or an X, like, that X factor that you can definitely tell. Like, it just draws them out in front of the pack. And I mean, fuck, I can't think of any other games that do those 3 things better than what those 3 games did. Except maybe, I mean, Red Dead 2 because it's the fucking greatest game of all time. But for Sony at least.
Yeah, no, I think it's well, one I can't compare to Days Gone. Obviously, I haven't played that one, but in terms of The Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima, the 2 of those games for me, while Last of Us was my favorite game for the PS3, well, just my favorite game of all time in general, but for the PS3 era specifically, and then Ghost of Tsushima being my favorite PS4 game, I think what the 2 of those games did exceptionally well and better than all the other games of that generation was how it merged a narrative experience and a gameplay experience together. Like how it takes the just the medium of video games and how you interact with it and the choices that you have and the just the actual gameplay itself, like how real both of them felt. While still feeling like a video game and not kind of like breaking past that threshold of feeling too real to the point where it's not fun, but definitely it combined the realism aspect enough to be able to just craft just a genuine experience from top to bottom, and it's really enthralling in both factors. But if I had to say one thing, or if I had to like, I guess give praise to one and kind of take away from the other, The Last of Us, for me, I feel like the combat in that game, if you prefer third person shooters over third person like action games, I think the shooting mechanics of The Last of Us is probably some of the best that I've ever played in terms of realism. I think like I don't know, the sway of the guns, like how weighty everything feels. It was the first game I played where it like when you saw the impact of a shotgun. Like those punches, like when you first started out the game, like they definitely seemed like I can't really put it in words, but it's not
I,
that Ghost of Tsushima didn't have that,
that's a hot take for
but
me.
it is because, well, so granted, and this is Tyler, Miles has never played like Escape from Tarkov or like Ready or Not.
That's fine.
Yeah, so like that,
It's a hot take for me because I think Naughty Dog is at gunplay.
ooh, okay.
Generally, I don't think it's good in Uncharted. It's bad. It's just not particularly like it. It feels like something that would have
No,
been in
and
like a 2002 game.
it's very nuanced. I will say that. Like it's not. It felt different. I've been playing third person shooters for a while by the time I played The Last of Us Part 1,
Yeah.
and something about it was very distinctive. And I feel like I liked it because the game as a whole was very distinctive. It didn't feel like any other third person game that
All
I'd
right.
played.
All right. I would say third person shooter I can think of that I would immediately 10 out of 10 times take their combat systems over. Oh, the Division 1
oh,
and 2. The last 2
Wildlands,
that they've put out.
Wildlands,
Yeah, I mean,
mostly
I didn't play
Wildlands.
Breakpoint,
Ooh.
but it's the same combat system improved. So
Well,
I just,
I mean,
a reason, like the way that Naughty Dog does their UI, and then the fact the gun feels super weighty. Like a 9mm should not feel weighty, and it feels like you're shooting a hand cannon. I'm just like, well, come on. Like if I'm Ellie, I get it. I'm like 11 years old at that.
Yeah.
Grip that fucking gun and shoot it, dude. Like, you know what I mean? That's not a Desert Eagle, my guy. You've got a 9mm. You know that. Let's not play
You should be
games here. So
putting rounds to that thing.
yeah,
But
man.
I respect it. I respect it. But
I would say I feel like the and again, this probably has to do with the difficulty, but I played Ghost of Tsushima on lethal, so everything felt like I was really in whatever 12th century Japan. Like if you shot, he died, and if I jumped down and I slashed someone on the neck with my sword, it wasn't 13 damage. They died. The combat for Ghost of Tsushima for me was just, it was so well done because it taught me like an encounter that you almost had to blend being samurai with the ghost. Like I want the experience of dropping down to have a duel with someone. Well, what I would end up doing, putting myself in situations to like kill 2 or 3 people in from an advantageous standpoint, and then drop into a sword fight with another 2 more, and it forced me to kind of blend those 2 schools of like, I can play dirty real fast if I need to balance these odds, but afterwards I want you to jump down and just admire these amazing armors as I cut you to ribbons. You know what I mean?
Here's a thought, T, and I don't know if Miles, you ever played The Witcher?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so imagine The Witcher 3, but with the combat system from Ghost of Tsushima.
And that's my only knock on the Witcher 3 is I didn't really care too much for the combat system.
I mean, it's good. It's just very button mashy. But can you imagine like The Witcher, like a Witcher game, but with that kind of like combat?
Best game of all time.
Witcher 3. That's definitely arguable. I mean,
if with that combat system.
Oh, that'd be fucking.
Even without it, it's still arguable, which is crazy because the combat system is not great.
No,
it is. Witcher 3. I mean, we could probably have an entire
that should be
dedicated.
The Witcher franchise should probably be its own episode at some point. But.
Yeah, probably at some point. Who knows when? But
so I would say for me. Oh no, you're good, Miles. What's up?
I was gonna say just when we were talking about third-person shooters for a second, and just on the topic of Sony exclusives, have either of you guys ever got a chance to play Returnal?
No,
I've not played it yet. That's on my list.
For someone who, champions themselves as a connoisseur of third-person shooters, I'd highly recommend you check out that game.
Okay,
it's excellent.
What's the premise?
I wouldn't say I'm a connoisseur of third-person shooters. It's not something I play a lot of.
Gotcha.
I would just say that your opinion on Naughty Dog, I could think of at least 4 other times that I played it.
Like I said, I respect it. But no, it's so Returnal is a roguelike game or roguelite.
It's the only reason I haven't touched it yet.
Not a fan typically though.
I don't know, but it was $70, and I was like, I'll wait. And then the last sale, I think I bought something else, and I'm like, I'll wait. So I'm still waiting. I do plan to play it at some point. I've heard it's one of the best experiences for the PS5 controller, which I think is the coolest reason to own a PS5.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
if you don't like roguelite or roguelike games, I don't know if this is the one that's gonna, get you over that hump to be like, oh yeah, I'm a fan now. But in terms of the gameplay and just like the minute-to-minute experience of the shooting and just how tight that experience is, I nothing else like it. I've played a couple of other Housemarque games on PS3. They made like a Dead Nation and Alien Nation that I really enjoyed, and just how tight their gameplay is in terms of like the shooting mechanics and how quick you have to be to react to things. It's a fun experience for sure. But yeah, definitely check that one out. Add it to your backlog.
Yeah, it's on my wish list. I get an email every time it goes on sale, and I always eyeball it. Like, is this the time that I'm going to buy this yet? Maybe not. Maybe next time.
Hey, Miles, when I come over to your house tomorrow for a haircut, I'm going to take that copy of Returnal.
All right, bring something with you so I can take something to trade.
Well, what do you? I have 2 PS5 games on disc, so I mean, you either
Oh,
get Gran Turismo 7 or
Highly
the new
recommend.
Horizon Forbidden West.
Haven't
Ooh,
hardly
I actually
played.
haven't played that one. I might take
Perfect.
you up on that.
I'll
Yeah,
bring
let's
that
do it.
over.
Let's do it.
Yeah. If we had to put in a category really fast that's just on that topic but not on topic with the show, is that like the one first person title. Damn it, I did it again. First party title.
First party.
The one first I bought like before it came out, I think I played it at all, is the new Horizon game.
I
2
played
times
it.
to sit down and play it, and neither time has hooked me.
So it's whatever magic the first one had. This one doesn't have it. That's I mean it's as basic I can get it. It doesn't. It doesn't
I
draw
feel the
you
same
in.
way,
It-
but I don't know why. I don't know if it's maybe the thing about the first game was like it's the first time you're doing like primitive dinosaurs that are robots, right? That's
Yeah.
pretty engaging.
Yeah.
And that might be the X factor in the first game
Yeah.
that they couldn't.
I already knew that was coming in game 2, and the gameplay is the
Exactly.
exact same.
And it's
It's the
nothing. There's
same.
nothing wrong with the game. It
No.
is the gameplay is great. The story, I mean, it might be great. I never actually beat it because it just didn't draw me in.
Yeah.
And if there's
their
if
biggest
there's
their
a certain
biggest fuck
point,
up is launching 6 days before.
Yeah. That's
yeah,
what I was
probably,
gonna say.
yeah,
They
But
yeah,
I was gonna say, excellent reference. But
right,
nah, I think in terms of Horizon and like how people view the second game, because I still haven't played it myself, but just I've heard that criticism a lot that it's kind of just more of the same. I feel like us as gamers, we kind of do we contribute to how developers and how gaming companies like want to continue to develop games, because if we
yes,
we shit on companies that try to do something that's too different from their original game, and like, oh, why don't they just stick to what they what we know works and what we know is a fun experience, to versus keeping the experience relatively the same and just improving upon minor things here and there to make it a better experience for the gamer. But then we sit there and say that it's the same. I know the novelty of it is worn off,
I don't
and
have a
you
good
are
answer for you here.
no, but you are absolutely
Awesome.
correct. And we've talked briefly about this, like spread out through 6 or 7 episodes that gamers treat devs like shit most of the time. And a great example of that was when gamers themselves had an influence on a game and it ended up being bad was Cyberpunk, which was our last episode. We talked about it. How like the head honchos were responsible, but also like gamers, like with little crackhead mentalities, were like, "Give me the fucking game, hurry, hurry, hurry!" And we got a steaming pile of shit. Absolutely, gamers have an influence on like what studios do, which is almost unfortunate because most of the gamers that speak their minds are shitheads.
Well, always that like, majority or small minority of people that are ultra loud and have some, but
Yeah,
I mean, I don't answerable because it's just like you say yes, we fact on it. And I would say objectively that's true, but then I'm trying to think of like
certain
I can tell
studios.
you for sure that Assassin's Creed fans would not have built the Assassin's Creed of today, right? Of not Ghost Recon, those fans would not have built the Ghost Recon of today, and Battlefield fans would not have been the people. 2042, this looks great.
That's
Ain't
true.
the game they would have
Yeah.
put together.
I think
So
it's almost studio fucking words again. Fuck.
it's okay. Specific.
Specific. Studio specific, because some studios are probably more influenced by their community than other studios. A great example of studios who don't give a shit about what anybody says, gamer, press, or anything, is Void Interactive. They literally, the only company I can think of right now who are like, we're going to make this game and this is what we're going to make. And everyone's like, you shouldn't do that. And they're like, shut the fuck up. We're going to do it. Yeah, kiss my ass. Miles, by the way, download Ready or Not. We can play together. It's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, I looked it up. I'm interested.
Yeah,
Miles, do you have a
it's
PC?
super good. He does.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you have disc?
Yeah.
I just recently got into PC gaming. I have a Discord. I haven't touched it in forever.
Oh,
You
I
need
was
to.
like, DJ,
Yeah,
why is he
we
not
can
on
hop on.
Discord, dude?
So
Anyway.
Miles is he's
I work 2 jobs.
he's
I'm
my
very
best
busy.
friend, and he's extremely busy, and he doesn't ever text back or listen to anything I have to say about anything ever.
That's
So
100% false, but
I
sure.
don't text
mean,
back
that's-
either. It's not my
Victim
style.
shame.
no,
Sorry.
Tyler's also horrible at texting back.
Be like
But
3
I
days.
witnessed Tyler's demise firsthand because I went to his house and like he'd be like, "Where the fuck's my phone at?" And it'd be like in a completely different room of his house. He would have no idea nor care where his phone was at. So I actually admire that
It's a
part.
good way to live. It's a good way to
It
live.
really is.
Definitely.
Which I
I'm
can't do anymore because I
envious.
monitor our fucking Twitter. So I'm on it. I'm on my phone 24
Half the
fucking
time
7 now.
I feel my phone go off in my pocket, and I just stopped looking at it because it used to be work. I wonder what's going on now. I'm just like, oh, that's DJ on Twitter.
Yeah. You should probably pay attention. Sometimes I text you with important shit. Like I'll be, oh, I just
know.
lined up this interview, or
Yep.
So what you're saying is it's a miracle to get all 3 of us in one place at the same time.
No, after
I
10,
mean,
I'm pretty consistent. You'll find me in
yeah,
Discord
that's true.
playing a game. That's it. My son's asleep.
Yeah,
This is my time. So
yeah.
that's
Miles,
why
on the
I'm
other hand,
smashing beers and drinking
yeah,
Yeah, for me the work
drinking
don't
beers and
stop.
smashing pretzels, not the other way around.
I mean, technically you could drink pretzels. It just you probably
Can
choke.
you?
It would hurt. I did have I had a buddy of mine came over the other I guess probably a week ago for some brisket that I had smoked, and I was like, hey, bring some beers. I'm out at the house, so I'll cook the food. You bring the beer. And he was like, okay, cool. So he brought me like an assortment. Like it was like he had like 4 of everything left in his fridge, you know. And so he was like, all right, so I got like 2 Bud Lights. I've got these Topo Chico like margarita mixers, which were amazing, by the way. Into that would probably sneakily.
It has actually 4th of July weekend this year.
Yeah, I never had
ruined
one
me.
before. The pineapple flavor is incredible. Anyway, that's my one. Josh call it frou-frou drink.
Yeah, something like that.
Anyway, that's my one frou-frou drink for the evening. But yeah, those are scary. My friend that night brought me a pretzel ale, and it was one of the most like unique bready experiences I've ever had with beer. So,
How did it taste like a pretzel?
it tasted bready, which I guess relative to other beers, that was kind of like, oh, that's
I mean, was it salty?
weird.
Was it like,
And like, yeah,
salty?
a little salty.
I'm kind of interested in that.
I think it was like, I think it might have been like Shock Top, dude. I think it wasn't anything like
Shock
crazy.
top.
Yeah, it was like a Shock Top pretzel ale.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Shock top makes fruity shit. They make like lemonade beer, and
This
I
was
think
a
they have like a
pretzel
mango
ale.
one.
Yeah,
Well, they
I'm
make like
curious
a
about
wheat
that.
beer. It's like akin to like Blue Moon.
yeah, it is.
I
It's
wanna
a Blue
say-
Moon competitor. They make an
Wait,
apple crisp that's phenomenal. It's a fantastic fruity beer.
I will say, and I think I've told Tyler about this, but podcast people don't know about it. So my cousin owns a brewery. I'm actually wearing the hat right now. I'll flip it over. East Channel, what's up? I went home one time, a long time ago, years ago, and my cousin made a blueberry like lager. I want to say it was a lager. I can't remember. I was pretty drunk when I had it, and it was delicious. And I was like, "Man, you need to make more of this." And he's like, "Yeah, I was drunk when I made it, so like I don't remember what I did. Like I don't remember the fucking recipe." And I was like, "Man, that fucking sucks because this is like really fucking good."
It's always the worst.
Oh man, I think he's tried to
Does that
remake
happen
it,
to you
but
guys a lot?
it
You brew an amazing. Do you remember how you did it?
I mean, I
Well,
don't brew beer,
Yeah,
but
no,
I
I would
mean,
say I've done that with
I
food.
said, "Oh, that's the worst," and I was like, "That's never."
No, I
fucking
meant
happened
with
to me."
like Well, like for me, I just mean like cooking a meal and not like remembering exactly how I
Mm-mm.
did it
That's
and then
because
trying
no
to
one who
replicate
cooks
it.
good
And
food measures spices.
no,
You're
not
No,
at
so
all.
it's not your
Miles
fault.
has a Miles has a horrible memory because we were talking about this the other day. We were on a train to New York when we lived in
Oh
Connecticut,
God.
and we stopped. One of the train stops was in New Haven, and we like left the train station because we've been in the train
I don't even remember
literally
what
all
we were
day
doing.
for like hours. And as soon as we left the train station, a news reporter came up to both of us and was like, "Can you believe what happened?" And Miles was like, "Yeah, like I can't believe what happened. It was, it's super unfortunate." And like all we knew was there was some ambulances and some police cars outside the train station, and Miles just like bullshitted his way through like a local news interview, like just
I have zero recollection of this event. Like
yeah. I don't know how
I
because we
think
were
you're
bone
bullshitting because I
sober.
have no idea. I do not remember that at all. Like
Do you
not even a
also
little.
remember the song we made?
Nope.
We were we were we were walking. There was like a whole gang of us, like 3 or 4 of us in Newport, Rhode Island. And we were walking down the streets, and we were like made up a song as we were walking.
Oh, bro, I was slapped. Like I don't think I.
You remember that? It was called like "Where the Bitches At," "Where the Hoes At," something like
Yep, yep. That sounds familiar. That
that.
sounds vaguely familiar.
Oh
Oh,
man,
different times, bro. Different
yeah,
times.
that was like almost 10 years ago. How does that make you
Damn
feel?
near. Not as old as these gray hairs. I'll say that.
Yeah, I can see him. Even in your webcam, I can see him right in your
Yeah,
beard
leave me alone.
on
That's so
the
funny.
left
No, you
side of your
can't.
face.
No, you can't.
You can't. He's fucking with me. I know. He tries. It's a swing and a miss.
Well,
It's all good. So moving on back to Sony. One thing I want to talk about before we wrap up, and this is probably gonna be a 2-part episode because we're almost running on 2 hours here. Was I want to get your guys' thoughts on 3 games. The first one I want to bring up is Wolverine. Sony announced a first party title. That's how you say that, Tyler, by the way. Uh, of a Wolverine game. What are your thoughts on that as a Sony exclusive? The laughs, yeah, I get it. Tyler, go first. What are your thoughts?
I don't have any.
You have none?
No, I hope it doesn't suck.
I hope it doesn't suck either. I will say this because it's almost contradicting because Sony first party titles normally are great games. Marvel titles normally are shitty games. They almost contradict, right? So will Wolverine be a really good game? I hope so. I hope it's story driven. I hope it's fucking great. Um,
Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I'll say I think it has a lot of potential. I think in order for it to be done right and authentically to the character, it better be rated M. Uh, I know that that's going to be uh, probably a tough decision in house at Insomniac to kind of I won't say isolate their audience, but
Wait, is it
uh,
is it Insomniac making it?
yeah, it's the
Well,
same
that's a
company
plus
that's
right there.
yeah, no, I think the way that they handled Spider-Man and how they've kind of
Yeah,
come lifted the Marvel video game curse a bit definitely is promising for the Wolverine title, but I think it still should be distinctively different from Spider-Man in terms of the tone in order to feel authentic for sure.
it's
But
got to be
I'm
more.
excited.
It's got to be more story driven than gameplay driven. Because I think Wolverine, when you think about like Wolverine, you think about the movies and how good the story of that character is. And I mean, looking at the picture of the announcement right now, like their Wolverine looks just like Hugh Jackman, and I hope they do it justice. I really do. I mean, if they don't, it's gonna be huge. I mean, like massive disappointment to like not just Sony fans but Marvel fans as well. If they succeed, I think that might be like one of those games, right? Like Spider Man was one of those games. It was super good, right? I mean, that's one we didn't talk about, but Spider Man is a fantastic game, and I think the Miles Morales DLC might be the best DLC I've played in the last 10 years.
Cool the fuck off, dude.
I'm being real. I mean, it
I'll
was
say,
a
well,
separate game,
Witcher
but it was
Blood and
I'll say,
essentially
Wine?
yeah, it was.
DLC.
Man, Tyler, you and I are here because
That's because
Blood
we're
and Wine
fucking
was
intelligent gamers. What the fuck are you talking about? It's the best DLC you've played in 10 years.
both of those are. Would you even consider them DLC? Because Miles Morales was like a whole separate experience. Like it was an
It's,
expansion.
It was a separate game, but essentially it was a DLC.
I think it's literally how it's kind of poised to you, right? So Miles Morales was a $60.
I
It
think it
was
was
not a
40.
$60
I think it
game.
was 40.
Was it
Yeah,
40?
it was
Oh,
definitely
you know
cheaper
what? It
than.
cost me 60 because I bought my PS4. I got the one that had the remastered original on it.
Mm.
Anyway, so maybe that's what it was. I mean, I think for me, I always viewed Miles Morales as an like a DLC. I'm sorry. Um, is because I paid a lot for it. Got $60 worth. It's short, I think is kind of my main complaint there.
Yeah, definitely. In comparison to Blood and Wine, that's a whole separate game in and of itself.
And so that's where I would tell you that because of how that felt, right, where it was $20, but like it's like another 55 hours of gameplay. Like it felt like you got an entire game at like peak. Not only was it Witcher 3 quality, it was their last, Witcher 3 patch essentially that they were putting out. So it was like the culmination of all their experience. $20 of 55 hours with amazing characters and content. So
I will
I
say
think
this:
maybe that's why they felt like one full game, but which one I would argue is really flipped based on the price.
I did not think of Blood and Wine when I said that last statement. I'm not gonna take it back because I said it. It's gonna be a thing. I will say this though: Miles Morales, as it was a separate game, but it wasn't like a full price game. Essentially, it was a DLC, but the world was different. The story was good, like really good. I think the Miles Morales character was a great video game adaptation,
Adaptation, yeah.
right? And they even changed the mechanics, like the way he moved. His movement was completely different.
Mm-hmm.
His
His
swinging
his
was
voice
completely
actor, the
different.
voice actor was so good.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very well made, polished game where we're talking Blood and Wine. Yes, it had a lot of content. There's a whole different map. But the gameplay elements themselves were essentially the same, right? So
Yeah,
that's my argument. I will say
I,
for
yeah, it's definitely.
your
I would say it's definitely a different experience for sure. Obviously Miles Morales isn't a completely new game from the ground up, but it's a lot of changes that made the experience feel different, even though it was a much more compact experience than Blood and Wine. Whereas
Agreed.
Blood and Wine was more so just the more of the same but different. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but no, yeah, for sure.
SSDD,
What he said.
same shit every day.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, but no, I think in terms of bringing it full circle back to Wolverine, I think Insomniac has definitely developed some trust amongst gamers in being able to deliver a good superhero experience, uh, and being able to and that cliche phrase of making you feel like Spider-Man. I think that they would do a good job of making you feel like Wolverine as long as the game is able to take the liberties that you should to make that a more mature experience and making that a rated M game.
So I will say with Insomniac, if you never played any of their games except for Spider-Man, if you played Spider-Man 2 on the PS2, like way back, right? What made that game special was like the open world and like swinging, right? That was like the X factor back in the day for that game. I remember playing that game when I was a kid, and being able to swing around New York was such an awesome thing. And when Insomniac made the new Spider-Man, they kept to that core of being able to like swing around. And I believe Treyarch made the original Spider-Man game on PS1 or 2, right? Pretty sure it was Treyarch that made it. But that whole aspect, without that game would have failed. Like Spider-Man 2 wouldn't be like this, to me, like a cult classic. Yeah, I think Insomniac did them such good justice on that aspect that if they put the same amount of passion and respect behind Wolverine, I think Wolverine will be at least on par with Spider-Man from the PS4, if not better. Hopefully better because the story should be incredible. Should be. Hope so.
I think uh, like a big stake in the game. I'm not the biggest X-Men fan, truthfully. Um, I think I agree with Miles. It really needs to be. You're gonna have to be rated mature to explore the themes that are present there for the character. It just makes me think that something that jumps to mind, you know, movies or TV that would have been amazing, really made like step into what, don't try and make it for a younger audience, was the Hunger Games. I never
Hmm.
read those books, but I would read the books, and I mean we've watched the movies and they're all good, but those movies would have been so much more impactful if they had just dove into an R rating, because like the subject matter is so, really can't make that story any milder than it is. Like you're talking about children fighting to the death so that their people don't starve. Like that's a miserable topic on every planet everywhere. So it's just, I don't know. I hope that they lean into like the mature themes, because that's how you're going to make it really impactful and not just a fun experience.
I mean, let's hope so. Because you look at all the X-Men games where, I mean, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine is in. All of them are PG-13, with the exception of Logan, which was rated R, which was, I mean, great movie.
Yeah.
Also, Deadpool 3 is going to have uh, Hugh Jackman in it back as Wolverine, which is fucking awesome. We just learned about that the other day. That's going to be
Yeah,
exciting.
for sure.
Uh, Continue on the three games I want to talk about. Insomniac, Spider-Man 2. It's going to be a short one.
Supposed to be co-op, I believe, so that'll be exciting. That sounds like I'll play it.
Yeah,
I
no,
I mean,
mean,
that's a game
I
that if
definitely.
it's the same to how Horizon is, like if it's more of the same. I thought Spider-Man, you know, Spider-Man 1 and then Miles Morales both were I thought Miles Morales was a little bit more of the same. It was just enough different to where I really enjoyed it. And I think that, they'll probably be able to innovate and improve just enough to where it's going to be like, man, I'm super happy that we got this in our hands.
Miles, you were about to say something, so.
Oh no, I was gonna say I'm looking forward to it. I think the co-op experience is definitely gonna be different for that game. If I if I had one wish and one thing that they did different is the amount of mini games. I know that they tried to be a bit innovative with how they presented them in terms of like the, I forget what exactly you were doing, but you had to like figure out which lane or like which direction the signal traveled to and whatnot. I just felt like it was kind of shoehorned in a bit. It definitely didn't. It wasn't compelling. Every time I end up having to do one of those, I just kind of want to stop playing.
Yeah.
But
You talking
outside
about
of that,
like their little exploration challenges and stuff? Like you had to do like Harry's labs, right? In the
yeah,
first one.
that and then like the code cracking thing where like I can't. It's been a while since I've played it, but
Well,
It felt it
I think I
felt
know what you're
very
talking about.
Ubisoft open world to me, which is like,
yeah,
we don't need to be doing that anymore. We've been doing
It felt
that
like a
since like
chore.
2014. Yeah.
yeah,
Like a chore, like work. You were doing
That's how I
work like a
felt when they were
chore.
like, "Hey, go catch these pigeons," a Spider-Man. I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
fucking want to do
yeah.
that,
Go
dude.
go find these 70 backpacks, across the city. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I I think games need stuff like that, but there's a balance, and I feel like that game definitely while it's an amazing experience, it definitely kind of detracted from it for me.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
So yeah, less of that.
The
and the
third
sequel,
game
please.
I want to talk about, and I say this for the last on purpose, was Ghost of Tsushima 2.
I didn't even know that that was confirmed. I know that there was a lot of people who wanted it.
Yeah, I wasn't
I've
entirely
only
sure
heard
that.
a couple of things talked about. We'll talk about like, okay, well, we know that, Yuna and her brother who didn't make it through was supposed to go to the mainland. He has nothing really holding him to. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know where they'll go with that story. What I would love to see is took what they, learned from new character, new time period. Like that could be cool. Mongolian.
Mm.
I think I would
Going
want
up
to play
against
with
their own
Mongolian.
people or something. Historically, I don't know the history of it exactly. I remember the ninjas fought back against real ninjas, like in Chinese culture, like they were either like some regime or like another country, and I don't remember which. Like that would be a cool thing to explore. Is like what you took peasants and put them up against. I think maybe they were samurai, but like in Ghost One, the samurai had to adapt to you know the victors and that how crazy would it be if it explored another time period whereas Chinese peasants you were trying to battle against this like iron fist of the samurai coming into your country and telling you how things were going to be um and you had to be the birth of ninjutsu. Like that would be a really cool game, I imagine. So
So the thing is that it's not like officially like announced yet, right? But there are rumors that it's already in the works, which is great for like Ghost of Tsushima fans. But there's like two games that were announced recently that are kind of similar, um, where winds meet, and it's like the China, like it's based in China, but it had a lot of like ghost vibes to it. And I'm trying to remember the second one. We talked about it on our State of Play episode, and I'm trying to remember what it's called. Do you remember what it's called? T. Rise of the Ronin. That game. So if you have all three of those games, right? So Where Winds Meet, Rise of the Ronin, and then Ghost of Tsushima 2. Ghost of Tsushima 2 is going to, it's definitely going to outsell those other two. Those other two look so promising that I hope they don't get overshadowed.
another idea. What if instead of doing another thing with Jen and sending him into, these various areas, what if they just kept the ghost theme and then it was like ghosts of somewhere else, right? But it was like tribal Britons having to fight off the Roman Empire as they come in, right?
That'd be cool concept. I
I
don't
mean,
think they'll do that because
I don't either because
the
the new Assassin's Creed that they're getting ready to do, but
yeah, and then you have
like any of that like early civilization tribal stuff going on in like the European areas, uh, been really interesting. I honestly, I imagine that there's probably somewhere in African cultures in like some do um something like that kind of rising up. Like I'm sure the Egyptians enslaved more than just like Jewish people over their history. Place to check out. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And I think it would be cool to explore the like the ghost aspect of the game and across like different themes, different cultures. I do think it might narratively might not tie into the story as well because that's kind of like the central theme of the Ghost of Tsushima game and the traditionalism, like how he
Yeah,
has to
that's
kind
true.
of
The
go ghost
Bushido
to
is
get
such a
away
key
from it.
part of it.
But it definitely interesting to think about.
They could make a game about the same topic but a different area because in Tsushima they talk about like the mainland and that being obviously Japan, and like the Mongolians are invading like all of Japan.
Yeah.
Like, there's probably a lot of different stories that they could use to make a different game. But if
There's
they call
also
it Ghost of
there was more than one Mongolian invasion of Japan in history too.
Yes.
So can't really go to a new time period, new character.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know how they're gonna do it, and then it's only rumors that it's in the works, and it more than likely is because of the success that the first game had. Like, they'd be stupid not to make a second game. I just hope that they don't fuck it up. I hope they do justice. Like, give Capcom their creative freedom to do what they want to do, because obviously what they want to do works, right? I'm pretty sure Capcom made that game.
Capcom? I don't think so.
No.
No, that's not Street Fighter, bro.
I was
I don't
like,
think
hang
so.
on a fucking minute. I have questions here. It was made by Sucker
That'd be
Punch.
news to me. Okay, yeah.
Why did I think Capcom for some reason?
I don't know,
Pulled that
because
out your
Capcom's
ass, I
never
don't know.
made a hitter like that in their life.
I mean, Resident Evil probably, maybe, but yeah,
I mean, it's good, but it ain't Ghost of Tsushima.
nah, not at all.
Why the fuck did I think it was Capcom?
Imagine you're as faded as I am.
I'm kind of faded. I'm a little faded.
Yeah.
If you see my
Good
eyes
man.
right now, I'm a little faded.
No. Well, I think the reason I've messed about 12 times is because I mixed 120 proof whiskey and the CBD got a poor plan, but
Yeah, probably.
I mean, my opinions are still the same. I'm just having a little
Man's
more trouble getting
zooted.
them out to you.
Listen, we don't advertise as a articulate, perfectly
No,
processed
God.
podcast.
I went
so
to school in South Carolina. We're like in the bottom 12% of schools.
I went to school in fucking bumfuck Egypt, Michigan. So
Product of the South Side of Chicago right here.
I'm
Which I've
actually
been.
visiting
Southside
Chicago for
Chicago
the
is not
first
a good
time in
place.
like 2 weeks.
It's a dope place.
No, it's
Keep
not.
your head on a swivel.
Yeah, for real.
Wait,
little
great
story
time.
time. I went to Southside Chicago for the first time with Miles, and we were walking to, was it Potbelly?
Yes, sir. Best sandwich
Yeah, we
place
were
on planet Earth.
yeah, we were going through like some park, and he's like, "I've been robbed at gunpoint twice here," and I'm like, "Why the fuck are you bringing my white ass through this fucking place?"
It's part of the
Every-
culture, man. Like,
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck is going on here?
Oh man,
hilarious.
I had a educational time going through Southside Chicago that time.
I hilariously in boot camp who was also from the South, and his family was like poor white. He was just like, it's an interesting spot to grow up. I was like, is it really as bad as everyone says? And he was like, well,
Yes.
eh.
no, don't listen to them. Don't listen to mainstream media. Just know that just like any other major city or metropolitan area in literally anywhere in the world, there's gonna be areas that you don't want to go to and areas that are really, really nice.
Yeah.
Places you don't want to go after dark. You know, every place has its hood. Every place has its ghetto that you want to stay away from. Chicago,
100% true.
because of the fact that it's such a massive city and it gets such the media coverage that takes place there because of how big the population is there, it gets a lot of unwarranted attention.
Mhm.
Well, let me not say unwarranted. It's definitely warranted. Like the violence there is out of control, but it's not everywhere. It doesn't mean that you are going to go there and get shot. It doesn't mean that you go there and not have a great time and experience the excellent historical city with some awesome architecture and just a lot of fun to be at. But
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I think we're gonna be. I mean, the conference I'm going to is like right on the river, and around the Navy Pier area. So hanging out
South
there,
Loop, yeah, it'll be a good time.
yeah, it should be pretty chill. Where my wife and my son are coming with me, and we're gonna go check out all the touristy stuff to do because neither one of us have ever been. So
For sure. We can exchange information after this. I can make some good recommendations,
okay,
restaurants and places to check out.
Right. Well, I think that should about end our longest episode yet. I'll probably cut this into two parts, honestly. Miles, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah,
for
man.
joining us, man.
This was great.
That was fun.
This was great. fun.
Um,
We're
sure.
really
Appreciate
synced
you
up there
having me.
for a while, huh?
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
This is why I wanted Miles to come on. I've been asking him like a couple times, like, you need to come on because
Mm.
Miles and our chemistry is pretty good, and me and T's chemistry is pretty good. So I think like this 3-way thing would have been fantastic, and I think it worked out pretty well. Couple announcements before we log off here. This Wednesday, which would be the 5th, I believe, Ironwood Studios, Pacific Drive. We have interview with them, sponsored by Cobra Brewing Company. That's big for us. Hopefully, it doesn't get pushed again. I don't think it will.
What time you think?
I mean, whatever. I think it's 9:30. Yeah, 9:30 p.m. Other than that, follow us on Twitter, leave us a review, and as always, peace.